Hello. I am live. Let's see if anybody shows up. Considering World Class Bullshitters is live streaming as we speak. Hello, hello. And we will give it a minute and see if we get any folks into the chat so we can talk a little Star Wars. Maybe Obi Wan or the Mandalorian. Hello. Ah, Swags, what's up? I guess I should have scheduled this. Welcome in. How are you? Can you hear me? I did test this out. As far as I could tell, it was working fine. So awesome. Awesome. I know you are looking forward to The Mandalorian. As am I. I am looking forward to The Mandalorian. I think there's some pretty wild potential storylines there. Cameos, guest appearances. It's going to be interesting to see the direction they decide to take with that story. Um, as we've talked about in the past, that is going to be a story about a Mandalorian that is basically trying to protect a baby of some importance. We don't know if the baby is related to Mandalore culture. That's something we just don't know about right now. Um, if I had my wishes for the show, there would be several bounty hunters that would essentially be chasing the Mandalorian throughout this show. We know it's got 8 episodes, and two different sources did come out and say that they had got finished with the first season, which is an indication that there will be a second season. That has not been officially announced, but there you go. Ben V, welcome in. Good to see you. Longtime supporter of the channel. What are your opinions on the Oscars? I have not watched the Oscars since the year that they snubbed The Dark Knight. I said, no, you know what? I'm out. I was like, this is the best movie I've seen in a long time. And for it not to get serious consideration, I said, this whole thing's a wreck. I do remember when there was some validity to the Oscars. Movies like Unforgiven. In fairness, they one year they did get it right. Somewhat recently, whatever year No Country for Old Men came out, um, it was an excellent movie. Um, but what's up, Lord Callis? How are you? Welcome in. But no, I generally do not watch the Oscars. My wife, uh, she might want to tune in. I don't know. I kind of doubt it. I'm sure her daughters will be watching it. They're sort of in that age range where sort of I think Oscars is sort of like water cooler talk the next day, and where they can talk about everybody's dresses and blah 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 and shit that I just don't care about. Um, so, but I don't know for sure. Maybe they won't want to see it. Um, I we went so smooth completing the first season, so I have a great feeling going into it being an awesome show. Bounty Hunters would be awesome. You know what I would love to see from The Mandalorian? I would love to see Cad Bane be your main opponent for The Mandalorian, which I think is a possibility with Filoni being involved. Um, I think he's a character that I am dying to see live action. And we never got um they never officially released the showdown. We've all seen it between Boba Fett and Cad Bane. Um, but it wasn't a finished product. I don't know if we will see that in the Clone Wars Rebirth. Um, they may or may not decide to show that and finish that whole that whole angle out. But I would love to see Cad Bane in live action and him sort of leading a group of bounty hunters chasing this Mandalorian. Lucas was anti Hollywood too. Cool. How Fav worked on Rebels via voice work. Now Filoni working on the Mandalorian with Fav. Yeah. Swags. We've sort of talked about back and forth in comments over a long time that um, we think we may be looking at the potential tandem that could end up leading Lucasfilm at some point. Um, I even think there's a chance that we may end up seeing a three-headed sort of triple threat of leadership for Lucasfilm at some point with Favreau, Filoni, and J.J. Abrams. That just you never know. That's more brainstorming. But I believe that Favreau is the guy that's got either him or JJ, but I think Favreau, it might actually be his dream job. He's a massive Star Wars fan. He's got very, very, very deep knowledge of the original trilogy. Of course, Dave Filoni's right there, and they have a great working relationship. And do not be surprised if Filoni ends up directing one or two episodes of this Obi-Wan series that we've heard about, because I think that's a distinct possibility. He will have two episodes of The Mandalorian under his belt for live action. So I think he could bring that over to Obi-Wan and direct. He might direct all 6 episodes for all we know. But I still think there's a chance that Lucas is going to end up directing maybe the beginning episode and maybe the ending episode of that whole Obi-Wan event series they're calling it. Cad Bane would be cool. I would love to see some connection to Sabine and the Rebels. Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility, Lord Callus. Filoni being involved brings that sort of thing into the fold. And I believe we're going to see some kind of a jaw dropping cameo or sort of character reveal during the first episode. That's gonna it's gonna be the kind of character build that reveal that sort of draws everybody into the show, where you will not have a choice but want to come back and see that show the next episode. You're gonna be like, oh my god, Cad Bane showed up or Sabine just showed up or whatever, and you're going to want to see that second episode. And then when you get to the series finale, I think you will see another uh, character reveal of somebody that we're real familiar with. We don't know who. And I think that's going to want to draw people in to the second season of that show. Um, so now I've got the over under on about 3 seasons of this show. Um, I don't think they intend for this show to be like, a 6 season run. I think they're looking at it as um, if they can get 16 to 24 hours, a 16 to 24-hour movie, essentially, out of The Mandalorian, I think is what they're going to be looking for. Um, Swag says, I respect how they always mention their projects are trying to honor Lucas's universe because they say that often, especially Filoni. Yeah, Filoni loves some George Lucas. Um, he mentored under George forever, and they still got a pretty close relationship. I know Jon Favreau and George Lucas has a close relationship. It's one of the reasons I went and saw Solo, uh, because of Ron Howard and his connection to George. And I think a lot of people, when they decided to not go see Solo, they forgot about that. You know, Ron Howard is George Lucas's guy. And so, I don't know. I went to see it because of Ron Howard. And like I said, I enjoyed the movie, but I didn't love the movie, but I did enjoy it. Lord Callus, yeah, I'm there for it. I love the Mandalorian lore, so anything that fleshes out this new canon, I'm on board. Yeah, I mean they can, if you've got 16 to say 24 hours worth of content, they can deep dive, into the Mandalorian lore. Um, I would be shocked if we don't see some kind of involvement with the Force at some point. I think you're going to see something Force related on that show. I don't think it's all going to be just bounty hunters and smugglers and whatever, even though that's going to be awesome. And that's sort of where my fandom leads for myself. I think they're going to give some Force sensitive nuggets out there for people that like that sort of thing. Um, which I think will really sort of draw everybody into it. Swag says true. I remember loving Willow. Yeah, I mean Ron Howard's got, he's got a a really good track record. Now he's had some duds too, but it that was a real mess. That whole Solo thing was a mess going into it when he came aboard. And Ron Howard was fully aware The Last Jedi tanked his movie. He made some comments on Twitter that reflected he was very aware that The Last Jedi tanked the movie he made. Now, I've said before, Solo is an enjoyable movie. The one flaw for me, besides L3, but far from a story standpoint, the one flaw I had with Solo, a Star Wars story, was the lack of galactic implication. And it hurt that movie badly. It made a Star Wars movie feel small. And a Star Wars movie should not feel small. I believe that's why Rogue One worked so well. Rogue One worked because there were large galactic implications that were involved, and Solo did not have that. Solo was a good gangster sort of movie, um, but that lack of large Star Wars um, implication that made the third act, feel like the state of the universe or the galaxy was riding on it. It wasn't there for the movie, and that hurt that movie badly. Flipped out. What's up, Flip? In the house. And I like Solo too. There were a lot of lore tucked away in that movie. I remember Fab was a part of Solo, so who's to say he won't bring some of that to the Mandalorian? He absolutely will. I believe that. Solo's characters were great. Unfortunately, it had everything going against it. Great points. Yeah, I mean, the other thing that Solo lacked was a villain that I felt just real good about. Um, I did not love Dryden Voss. I would have liked to have seen the original villain that Lord and Miller had, which was actually an alien. Michael Williams, a really good actor from a series called Hap and Leonard that's on Sundance, was originally an alien villain, was the main villain for Solo. And when Ron Howard took over, he scrapped that idea to bring in Paul Bettany, and I think that was a bad idea on Ron Howard's part. Or Ron Howard, I don't know. Maybe Kathleen Kennedy did that. Probably, probably. Flipped out says at Lord Callus, hey bro. We have Beckett, we have Aura scene, we have the Mando helmets and Dryden's drop ship. Yeah, absolutely. There were a ton of little nuggets like that in Solo. In my honest opinion, would Solo have been a $1 billion film if the Last Jedi hadn't came out? No, I do not believe that. I think Solo was about a $600 to $700 million grossing film, which I think they would have been fine with, um, provided that the Last Jedi hadn't happened. And of course, we know it ended up with under 400 million. The Dog Show. What's up, dog? Hey, Rhodes. Awesome, man. Okay. Well, thanks for stopping in, man. Swag says, I appreciated Solo, including the great prequel content that JJ and Ryan's trilogy has forgot. Yeah, Swags, you're more down on JJ than I am. I know we're both equally down on Ryan Johnson. So they can recast Vision, right? Yeah, I think Dog's got another stream going tonight. I just didn't know what time it was. Solo was okay. Just wish they used the guy that looks like Harrison, not the weenie punk they used. I'd love an Obi Wan show, but the Tico show, Flip. I absolutely do not believe that Rose Tico show will ever see the light of day. Um, I think when I read a tweet that said basically something to the effect of there were a bunch of people in a room and they were throwing things against the wall, and one of the things they threw was a Rose Tico show. And then some insider leaked that out that, well, they pitched the Rose Tico show. Well, they might have came up in brainstorming, but I don't think anybody um, can foresee that show actually happening. Um, and for the record, I liked Alden Ehrenreich as Solo. That was the one thing my wife and I was shocked how much we liked that dude playing Han Solo. And Harrison Ford's my favorite actor. So that's saying a lot for me. I went into that thinking I'm going to hate this dude, and I didn't at all. I thought he was the most enjoyable part of that whole movie. Now, I think he did the smart thing in not trying to act like Harrison. I think that would have hurt him more than anything. Um, the funny part is, even with all of its problems, I enjoyed Solo, but I hated The Last Jedi. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Solo's not a great movie. It's an enjoyable movie. But I mean, it looks like The Godfather Part Two next to The Last Jedi. Who even proposed the infamous Rose Tico project needs the walking papers very soon. Okay, I'm glad you said that because in the video I just posted, I sort of suggested that maybe Carrie Hart was the one that threw that out. Oh, Flip, have you not watched my latest video? Flip, that is what my latest videos is about, is that article. I absolutely destroyed them. So if you get a chance, Flip, you might want to watch that because yeah, I read that article just it and I videoed myself reading it. And I provided commentary throughout the whole thing as I read it. It's infuriating. Well, they think we're mad. We haven't gotten mad yet. You liked Alden. Yeah, my wife and I both liked Alden a lot. Um, but I think it would have been a mistake trying to be Harrison. I mean, nobody's going to be Harrison. That's not going to happen. He said, "Oh, I just posted it. I'll be sure to check it out." No, no big deal, dude. Um, yeah, I think that Rose Tico thing is um somebody was saying today, maybe it was Christian Harloff on Jedi Council that um he used to work for a for Joel Silver's company out in Hollywood, and he was involved with development. And he said you would be amazed the projects that were in development that never actually got made. Like he said, there was a sequel to Commando 2. He said that was absolutely in active development for Joe Silver's company. And nobody ever knew about it, but it was, think about that, a sequel to Arnold's movie with Arnold that was in active development and nobody ever knew about it. And he said like production companies and studios, he said they may literally have like 20 projects, like movie projects or TV projects going, and we may only hear about like 3 of them, you know. I grew up on Commando. Yeah. Oh yeah, John Matrix. My boy John Matrix, who by the way, I'm going to shamelessly plug our show tomorrow night, Bad versus Evil: The Rule of Not To, on the John Matrix channel at 5:30 Central Time. That is a great show, by the way. Not to toot our own horns, but me and John work out well on that show. And we're having Lord Callus tomorrow night as a special guest for that live stream over on John Matrix channel. So, hello there, General. Yeah, awesome. Welcome in, and we are talking uh, a little bit of everything tonight. Uh, Back when me and my veteran father used to watch action films all night on VHS when VCRs were the new deal. He. Yeah. Um, in fact, me and John Matrix discussed that at length on that show. Week before last was the sort of the destruction of the great action movie. Like, in other words, what happened to action movies? Um, I grew up in a time when, uh, American Ninja, of course, all the normals. suspects, Stallone, Arnold. But there was a lot of deep diving sort of movies back then. Remember Red Sonja um, with Brigitte Nielsen? American Ninja. Of course, there were like 14 kickboxer movies. Canon Films. That's exactly right. Canon Films has went out of business, and there is an excellent documentary on Canon Films on Netflix right now, and it's a hell of a good watch. Flipped Out says he was so the man. Now everyone is so scared of guns. I'm a big Arnold fan. I guess I've got Arnold probably my number two favorite all time actor behind Harrison Ford. I love some Arnold Schwarzenegger. My dad was his biggest fan. Yeah, I I just loved his movies. Commando, Predator, The Running Man, Raw Deal, Twins. Yeah, I went there. Eraser, True Lies, the Terminator movies. I mean, just a list of action bangers, one right after another. And of course, Stallone. Cobra. You had all the Rambo and Rocky movies going on. Um, Tango and Cash was one of my favorite movies. I mean, I love Tango and Cash. That chemistry and back and forth between Kurt Russell and Stallone in that movie was awesome. Here comes Terminator Woke Edition. God flip, I hope not. I've seen pictures from that, and I hope not. I mean, this is Cameron's back involved, but boy, it looks scary. And I wanted Linda Hamilton to come back. Um, they could have taken a lot of notes when developing these Star Wars female characters from Sarah Connor. I mean that woman's been through hell and back and kept kicking ass. The film On Mars, but I forgot the name. Um, which what film on Mars? Oh, Total Recall. Yeah, I like Total Recall. Arnold's version. Not although Colin Farrell's version wasn't terrible, but it Chuck Norris, yeah, absolutely. Invasion USA, Lone Wolf McQuade, um of course the missing in action movies. What was it? Braddock, Missing in Action 2, um Silent Rage, Breaker. I mean, just classic action movies. And as a society, we have gotten too snotty and snooty for action movies. I thought that tradition was going to like sort of keep going there when Jason Statham came on the scene and had the transporter. The transporter felt like one of those good old action movies, and that kind of thing just kind of faded away. Um, the only thing we've got now is the Fast and the Furious movies, and in fairness, they do the action thing well, and they do it at a big budget. But now all of these actors have to get together in one movie to make any money. And the one I'm talking about is The Expendables, which is amazing to me. It is amazing that you could put Stallone and Bruce Willis and Schwarzenegger in a movie and it not automatically do $500 million at the box office, but it won't. It absolutely will not. People just will not go see it. I know a lot of people say it's because of their age. Um, I guess maybe, but Missing in Action, I've seen it a million times. Delta Force, yeah, I forgot about that one. You're right. The genre hadn't been the same since the 90s and the 80s. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you right now, I remember going to, I went to the movies a ton when I was a kid. What's up, John Matrix? How are you, sir? Thanks for joining. We're talking one of your favorite subjects, 80s and 90s action movies. And I can remember going to the theater and, Universal Soldier was sold out opening night. I mean, the theater was packed. Um, Under Siege with Steven Seagal, I can remember. In fact, Under Siege 2 with Steven Seagal was sold out the night it opened here in Texas. And I know Seagal's kind of a punchline, but I saw Mark for Death, Hard to Kill, both Under Siege movies, On Deadly Ground. I was a big Seagal fan back in the day. And I'm going to tell you, every one of those movies was sold out opening night when I went to see them. Packed houses to see those action movies. Uh, Horror movies are big down in John Matrix knows this. He's from Texas too. We love some horror movies and some action movies down here in Texas. Swags, if you're not subscribed to Lord Callus and or John Matrix and or Flipped Out, you should really give these guys a sub. They put out some really good Star Wars content. Really good smaller channel creators, and great parts of the community. I always thought Seagal was overrated. Man, I didn't. I mean, that dude. People forget that dude was breaking arms before anybody was breaking arms. I mean, hard to kill. He kicked everybody's ass. I mean, with extreme prejudice. Almighty Coon, welcome in, sir. How are you? Lightsaber Addict, welcome. I think I subbed to all of these great people. They are great folks. Van Damme is awesome. I love Bloodsport. Man, I mean, that's just what I'm talking about. Y'all remember Double Impact? Anytime you got to see Van Damme versus Bolo, you guys remember Bolo? That dude was a monster. Yep. Uh, man, let's see, Universal Soldier, Kickboxer. Um, Van Damme was in Cyborg. God, I mean, just these movies were just, and it's kind of what you did like on a Friday night. If you weren't going to the movies, well, you was going to the local movie hut. And do you remember how great it was to walk in your local movie hut or Blockbuster or whatever when in the 80s and in the early 90s for me in rural Texas, we had a lot of independently owned movie huts. I call them movie huts, VHS places, right? You go in, get your rentals, and man, the greatest thing in the world was walking through that door and thinking, what 3 or 4 movies am I walking out of the movie hut with, or the VHS hut for your consumption over a Friday and Saturday night, and you're walking the aisles and you look at the back of you look at the back of movies like you're really, like you're looking over the Watergate files. Oh man. I don't know if anybody else appreciated that experience, but boy, we loved it growing up. And let's see, I'm trying to think of any other action stars that I that I missed out on. Of course, Bruce Lee and all those, all his movies. Um, and like I said, this is Star Wars and movie Q&A. So yeah, I miss renting games and movies. Yeah, and renting games got real big. And it's funny how, you know, I would actually, if I had the opportunity to still get that experience, um, I would forego some Netflix if I could still do the whole. I understand the convenience of hitting a button and getting movies on your TV. I get that. In fact, come to think of it, there's a little town about 12 miles from me that still has a large video store that rents movies, just like Blockbuster did. It is independently owned, and you can still go in there and rent movies. I'd forgotten all about that. But it's just one of those things. As the time progresses, certain things go out and new things come in. So, does anybody have any questions about Star Wars or anything else movie related? Uh, Hit me up. It looks like we've got a bunch of fine folks that are subbing to each other. It's crazy. They took CDs out of Target and Best Buy, but brought in vinyl. Even red boxes out of date. Yeah, we've still got quite a few red boxes here, and you will see some people still standing outside of them occasionally. Um, but everything's went to on demand. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird for CDs not to be available anymore. But MP3s, all of that's kind of knocked everybody out of that. I mean, it's all about convenience now. It's all about instant gratification now. And of course, personally, I think that's part of one of the things wrong with society right now. But I don't want to get off on a tangent on that. But we have lost the ability to appreciate slowing down. Um, I listen to vinyls, always have over disc. Vinyls sound good. I bought Star Wars on vinyl. Yep, I've got the Star Wars soundtrack on vinyl as well. Vinyl was always home. Flipped out says, any thoughts on what they'll do with the Obi Wan TV show? Thoughts? Yeah, I do. I've got a lot of thoughts on it. Um, Number one, do not sleep on the fact that George Lucas may or may not be involved. I believe there is a real chance George Lucas is going to be involved in this show. Um, I think he has been involved with it, and I think I don't know. I don't want to necessarily say I think they're doing him a solid, but I don't think it's a coincidence that he was out scouting locations in Ireland specifically for that movie. And really and truly, I think that guy was confused. I think it was for this TV show, and I think it's been for this TV show for a while. I think behind the scenes, what I will tell you is I had heard this thing was actually confirmed about 4 months ago, and I did a video on it. And then, man, not long after I did that video, the politician in Ireland that's responsible for specifically bringing in business to the country of Ireland said that George Lucas was going to be filming there. And said George was over there. George himself was over there. Um, I think, will he face Vader or Maul? I don't know. And it's going to be either or. I don't think it can be both because unless they do a progression of time, okay? And what I mean is if they start the series, you know, 5 years after Sith and then the next episode progresses somehow, or maybe they do the first 3 and then they have like a 15-year time jump or something. Um, what I also think is you will see elements of that Moss Eisley uh, movie that they had a script for that they were very close to hiring a director. I think you will see elements of that in this movie as well. Ewan McGregor called the script for this Obi-Wan deal, quote, great. He said it was a, quote, great script. I still have the OT soundtrack on CD from like 18 years ago before changes in music. Have the original celebration music from the end of Jedi instead of the awful music we got in the special editions. Agreed. I think they went and begged him, maybe. What I think you could see happen, and I was talking about this earlier, is I think you could see George Lucas and Dave Filoni both directing episodes of this thing. I think that's part. My guess is that's part of Dave Filoni directing 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. I think they wanted him to get in there, or he wanted to get himself in there, and he's got a great relationship with Favreau. I think he got in there and he wanted to cut his teeth doing live action. And um, sorry about that. I sold something on eBay. I had to look at my phone right quick. Um, and I think Filoni, there's a real chance that he could direct some episodes of this thing. Sith Kryptonian in the hizzy. If by some miracle you guys are not subscribed to Sith, uh, go do so. His channel is blowing up. Blowing up. Um, well, how about this question? What do you want to see? Do you want to see him face Vader or face Maul? Do you want them to figure out um, a storyline where theoretically we could see him face both? Maybe Vader at the beginning, Maul at the end. I would love to see a replay of Obi-Wan versus Maul from Rebels. Of course, in a series like that, it's probably going to be a little bit more drawn out. Sis said he wants to see Maul, Vader, and a cyborg Windu. Hey, Sith, I want to see after Obi-Wan, I want to see Mace Windu a Star Wars story. I want to see that. Um, and I want it to be post Sith. I want him to live. In other words, of course, where in the hell he's been all these years, I don't know. But you know, I just watch him. I don't write them. I want to see a Star Killer series. That could be interesting, actually. Cyborg Windu definitely makes me think of Star Wars Theory's next Vader project. Yeah, at Rhodes both. Vader, he has to face Vader because he never got an answer for Obi-Wan once he thought Obi-Wan doesn't know Vader survived as of now before A New Hope. Well, there was some indications from a couple of things that Obi-Wan actually said that would make you think that he had another encounter with Vader at some point. He's more machine now than man, blah, blah, blah. Well, how do you know that? So I know it's been rumored that they had another confrontation, is what I've heard. Um, at some point, but I don't know. But yeah, somewhere in the stratosphere, there's talk that there was like a second confrontation, or maybe Lucas said there was a second confrontation in his mind between the two. Re-imaging Star Wars. Hello. I thought the same thing about the machine dialogue, but it came during Empire after he faced him in re-imaging. Well, he did cut off his arms and legs. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's like I said. I think it is promising that George could be involved. Um, if he was out scouting locations, there's a real chance he is going to look to. Gosh, I would think at least produce it. Um, if not direct it. If he didn't want to direct it, that's sort of fine. I really hope he secretly wrote this thing. Is what I'm hoping. Like if he wrote the story, George Lucas wrote the story, and then he lets Dave Filoni or somebody like that direct it. Then yeah, you're on to something. I mean that's potentially epic storytelling. So we hope we've got a glimmer of hope. It seems. I got your vid. Just trying to get to it, my friend. I heard the first stanza. Wanted to listen. Harloff thinks it is happening. The Obi Wan movie. They need Lucas to write the story for me to have confidence in it. Say what you will about the prequels, but George nailed Obi Wan. Yeah, I'm. I am not the biggest prequels fan, although I like Sith a great deal. But the one takeaway out of that whole deal was Ewan McGregor and Obi Wan. I mean, he came out of that trilogy as a historically great Star Wars hero. Um, and man, Ewan McGregor was so good in that series of films. Um, he owned that part. He played it with some swagger, which I appreciated. Um, he brought confidence to the screen. He was sort of an asshole in a couple of parts, which I thought was really awesome. Um, and then of course, the confrontation at the end. I don't know. I think George is involved. That's what I'm thinking. If he was scouting locations, I've got to think he was involved. What are some? Let's see. We brought up Windu. What? Hey, since I got Sith in here, I'm gonna bring something up that me and we were talking about when the stream first started. What do you guys think about Favreau and Filoni running Lucasfilm as a tandem? And I'll let y'all think on that in the chat. I'm a prequel fan, but Sith is an all-time great Star Wars movie. McGregor was so great in the prequels, and of course, Ian McDermott is Palpatine. Yeah, absolutely. He was fantastic as Palpatine. He was even if Mace did whip his yeah. Uh, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie. Wow. Well, that's awesome. I would love that. They both get Star Wars. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I mean, you've got Favreau with the experience of he sort of launched that whole Marvel outfit that they have going. He sort of launched that, with Iron Man, and he's got a ton of tentpole movie experience. He's got a good relationship with Disney, um, from both Marvel and from these live action movies. I mean, that Lion King looks. Let's face it, that thing looks ridiculous. I mean, it looks great. And I understand it's still CGI, but I don't give a damn. It looks. When I saw the trailer to that, I was like, "Oh my god, that's insane." Um, and then you've got Filoni that's got that back George Lucas knowledge, from being around George every day. I think I think as a tandem, they could be the people you want running that show. Um, you know, Favreau's got more experience, I think, with the administrative side. In other words, he probably has a better idea of how to go into these Hollywood parties and hobnob and blah 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 blah. Whereas Filoni can be, sort of like the creative guy. Even though obviously they both are creatively fantastic. The F's. I'm digging that. Favreau is an awesome producer, and Filoni tells stories like George Lucas. Yeah, I mean that's it. Uh, Lord Callis says at Sith Crypt and John Matrix, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite. ESB second. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite for sure. Um, but Sith is Sith is good. It is Sith is Sith gets better the more times I see it too, which is pretty good. Rogue One gets better every time I watch it too. I think that third act of Rogue One is it's a mother. And let's see what other series could we possibly want to see? They pitched they pitched the Darth Bane series, which I think that's got potential. I don't know if anybody wants to see a Knights of Ren series. I think maybe at the end of the Force Awakens we might have been interested in that, but then Ryan Johnson got involved. Rogue One is the only Disney Star Wars movie with a iconic Star Wars scene, Vader. Yeah, and that Vader scene actually came after the fact. After Edwards was like gone, Gilroy put that scene in. Harloff is starting to become a shield now. He didn't like The Last Jedi, but now he is saying he loves it the more he watches it. See, that's weird because even today he was like, I still don't. He said that still doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie to him. Um, I actually thought he had said he liked it a lot more initially, and then he's backed way off of that as time has went on. In fact, Collider did a video. He was on a video 2 weeks ago as part of that Collider podcast where he said The Last Jedi was way down his list of Star Wars movies. Uh, Man, Darth Vane series would be sick. There's a lot of story to tell. I think if they do that series, they have got to get the author of those books to come in and creatively help them with that Darth Bane series. I have not read those books, but I heard it is some epic storytelling that I need. I guess I need to read those because I I have heard they're excellent. Um, and that's sort of the issue right now is if they've got somebody with knowledge of product like that, that's the person they got to go pick out and bring in to sort of work on these projects, you know? Um, take all of the agendas out of it and just go get the people that know what they're doing and know the product, know the stories, um, and let them sort of like make sure their vision gets on either the big screen or on a on TV. Which sort of brings up a great question. How do you guys feel about Star Wars going to television? Um, I'll give you my take real fast. I actually think television is the best place for stories to be told these days. I think it allows more character development now, and it allows you to sort of hash out storylines and give them depth. Whereas you're not seeing that as much in movies. Movies have become a little more superficial. Take care, Sith. Have a good one. Thanks for joining. Um, I know that some people think Star Wars is sort of beneath, TV sort of beneath Star Wars is sort of above TV, but I don't necessarily agree with that. If TV is sort of where you're getting the best stories now, um, I don't think TV is not the same product it was in the 90s or even in the early 2000s. Do you know how many uh how many movies wish that they had the sort of following that Game of Thrones has or that The Sopranos had, Breaking Bad, um, The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, the first 3, 4, 5 seasons of The Walking Dead. Um, it's exactly Lord Callis says TV for deeper dives into lore. That's exactly right. It just allows you to hash out the characters and develop storylines. So then, if a character gets killed, uh, you really feel it. I mean, um, I was my favorite television show ever is The Shield. It was a show that was on FX, and boy, it was a great show. It was shot sort of like guerrilla style. It was about the LA strike force, and they worked homicide and drugs out in LA. And I mean, it was to this to this day, it is some of the top five like storytelling I've ever seen. TV or movie, it's fantastic. TV is great for Star Wars. The Clone Wars overall may be the best Star Wars stuff. Flip says Star Wars on TV we'll have to see, but there's something about going to the theater to watch a Star Wars movie. Well, there used to be. Yeah, I mean, you're right, and I know one thing that sort of hurts that is our age. I mean, I'm 43, and I remember when if you ended up on TV, that was sort of an insult. Okay, but I just don't think that's where we're at anymore. I think with the sort of the development of Netflix and HBO making their original content, and now AMC's got actual um, Walking Dead movies that are coming, and while people will want to say, "Well, who's watching The Walking Dead?" Well, about 12 to 15 million people a week are still watching The Walking Dead. And that people don't realize that show was a phenomenon for about the first 4 seasons. Um, and that's you sort of have that week to week carryover, right? where people can get together and they can talk about the storylines. I mean, look at there are channels upon channels on YouTube about Game of Thrones right now. Um, Absolutely agree, Flip. I don't think one should trump the other. Direct TV used to be a very bad thing, but I think HBO and changed with Game of Thrones and Westworld. Yeah, I mean, I really think I'm going to tell you where I really, truly, truly believe it changed, and that was The Sopranos. Um, The Wire is another one. Like I said, The Shield. Um, I mean, there. You know how many movies wish that they would have been able to have captured the kind of success that Breaking Bad got. I mean, we're talking. And think about it. There are a lot of really good TV series now. And remember something else. A lot of these TV series have, for example, Game of Thrones. They show episodes of Game of Thrones in the theater. Okay. So when they do that season premiere, if you look around at your theater listings, very likely there is going to be one night that they will have where you can go in and watch Game of Thrones in the theater. And they'll probably do it for the finale too, I would assume. Definitely agree. Can be great, but I do miss good movies of Star Wars. I look forward to finding out with Kenobi. Yeah, yeah, and I think you could find out even before that. I think the Mandalorian is um, gonna be something else. That I think that show is gonna surprise some folks. And what I can't wait is I can't wait for people to get a load of Pedro Pascal because that dude is serious. That dude is serious business. That that MF is so awesome in Narcos. I can't even. Everybody talks about him because of the sort of infamous arc he had in Game of Thrones, and I get that. I mean, nobody was more surprised than me when I saw what happened to his character. Um, but those 2 seasons of Narcos are as good as it gets uh, from an acting standpoint. Yeah, at flipped out. I think the Star Wars, the Skywalker saga, for example, is one story that should stick to the big screen. I agree with that. I agree with that. Pedro killed it in Game of Thrones. Filoni is a slow developer, but a great finish. Favreau is a good storyteller too. He's great in Game of Thrones. I'm telling you guys, it's Narcos is where you got to check out Pedro. The Walking Dead was once a powerhouse, but something happened and it got weak. Then they killed the cowboy's son. Ugh. But Sopranos, Game of Thrones, and so many more have been amazing. Yeah, and I'll tell you, The Walking Dead. A lot of people can make fun of it, but it is the one thing. Come hell or high water, I know about 10 people personally that come Sunday night, they're not doing a damn thing else except watching The Walking Dead. Still. So, don't always believe that. Yeah, their ratings have dropped some, but a lot of that's got to do with if you look at the like same day or the plus 3 day DVR thing, it's still getting ridiculous ratings. Of course, I'm a big Negan fan, so when Negan showed up, the show got a little better for me actually. Everybody else got everybody else got turned off by Glenn and Abraham getting their noggins cracked open, and I just laughed. I thought that was some of the greatest crap I've ever seen. Uh, Most characters I like died. That's Game of Thrones, right? Lord Callus at Lord Callus. Yep, Skywalker is a big. screen thing. TV could work. Okay, so let me ask this question. We've talked about this on Matrix and I's show. If Mark Hamill would agree to do the project, would you want to see a post Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker series using the same de aging technology that they used on Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War and they've used on Nick Cage in Captain Marvel? Would you guys want to see that? Another there and you're fixing to find out what that looks like because they're going to use it in episode 9. Because I know a lot of people feel cheated because they didn't get to see Luke Skywalker in his, Grandmaster Jedi lightsaber swinging. Um, I'm going to come in and I'm going to mow some folks down. Is that something you would want to see in the same vein that they're doing Obi Wan? Let's say 6 episodes, event series. So essentially a trilogy in movie terms, 6 hours. Would you want to see Mark Hamill come in and let them do the de aging thing and him just, essentially great story slash a lot of Luke kicking ass kind of thing? Is that something that Star Wars fans are open to? Because I don't know about you guys, but I'd watch that. You know, I'd watch that. Especially, I mean, I think the big thing is you'd have to get Mark Hamill to agree to do it. But again, I would watch that. That's something I would watch. And especially, I mean, I think it, God, think about how much Ryan Johnson messed up. Man, it is just, it's nuts. I almost made it this whole stream uh, without bringing up Ryan Johnson. I guess I made it an hour and a little over an hour. God, that's got to be some kind of record. I still wake up screaming Ryan Johnson's name in the middle of the night like he's Freddy Krueger. Tough question, Rhodes. I don't know. Luke is my favorite character across the novels and movies. I'd be nervous about the consistency of the effects. Man, I think that's something you're not even going to have to worry about. I think the effects is probably like, man, I look at what they did to Sam Jackson. I mean, they literally shaved like 20 that dude. It looks, and maybe it'll look different in the, you know, God, the only problem is I'm not going to see the movie. Well, I'll let you know once it hits Netflix. But the trailers, he looks phenomenal, with that de aging stuff. The bad thing is they may ruin Luke again. Look at uh, TJ and Galaxy of Adventures. When they stopped using zombies 2 seasons ago, I just felt like it was less fear and more drama. The Walking Dead was awesome when it was like a sexy horror show. I haven't seen it in a bit, but maybe good show now. Okay, the first half of this season felt more like a horror movie than we've seen in years on The Walking Dead. Now, that said, the mid-season premiere last week sucked ass, which is amazing because we had just come off of 8 amazing episodes the first half of the year. Now, the Whispers are involved now. They just kind of really showed up and got going. I don't know how much you kind of sort of stay up with the comics. I waited for The Last Jedi on Netflix. Wish I never saw. Oh, at least you didn't pay. I always go back to the dude. I think about the dude on my Instagram that saw it 6 times in the theater. And like the first 3 times he saw it, he wore like his Jedi robe to the theater to see it, and he was like, that dude had to have been. I mean, he had gray in his beard, so maybe it was Kylo Ken from Collider that went and saw it 6 times. It really wasn't him, but I'm just saying. I am not seeing Captain Wokeness either, Rhodes. I mean, I'll probably watch the movie once it like hits Netflix. But I'm certainly not going to the theater. I'm not going to pay to see it. I'm not giving them additional money to see that Captain Marvel crap. And the thing about it is, even when those first 2 trailers dropped before Brie Larson went in all of her like freaking I hate all white men thing and she started spitting all that venom. The movie didn't the movie looked kind of boring, to be honest with you. I mean, there was nothing about those first 2 trailers that made me think, man, this is going to be an epic Marvel movie. Nothing. Nothing. It almost seemed like a depressed Marvel movie. I mean, even like Ant-Man, I saw those trailers and was like, "Oh yeah, that'll be a fun movie." At no point did I see Captain Marvel the first 2 trailers and think, "Oh yeah, that looks like a blast." No, no, it doesn't look like a blast at all. Now, I had convinced myself that I wanted to see it because of Nick Fury. I believe Sam Jackson deserves a Nick Fury movie. And if he doesn't get hey Disney Plus, if you're listening, you want to make a Marvel series, how about you make a 6 or 8 or 10 episode event Nick Fury series because I'll watch the shit out of that. Captain PMS, she started movie with suit all blue. Man, I swear she better not be the reasons the Avengers sort of come back and um man, that's just not fair to all the years of work those guys put into those characters. Um I'm really I'm shocked. I don't understand why Marvel hadn't stepped in and sort of shut that shit down. I don't get that. I don't understand why Kevin Feige hadn't shut that crap down. Um and you know what? I take that back. I do know why. They're scared of the media. That's what it is. They're scared of the media. Um, because they know if the media gets wind of that, Feige would be roasted, immediately. I don't understand why they can't stand up to the media and say, "Listen, this is my show. Kiss my ass. I'll run this thing the way I want to." I saw The Last Jedi twice in the theater. I truly couldn't believe what I saw the first time, and it made me doubt myself. So I sat on it a few days and then went back. I only saw it once, and I put my review up on my old channel, and it took me about 2 full days to put it up there. Not from like editing or any shit like that. I've said this before. I felt like I had the flu. I felt like I had. Y'all know that horrible feeling when you go to a funeral or you're like post funeral, post friend dies or something, or and maybe that's a bad analogy, but just that sunken, almost somewhat nauseated feeling. Um, I was depressed, and I was getting ready to do my review, and my wife was with me, and I said, I saw the Last Jedi, and I went off. I lost my ass in this review, just completely like a cursing tirade. And I said I felt like I had the fucking flu. And that's what I felt like. I was just like, oh, depressed. And because I just couldn't believe that there was a Star Wars movie, I was like, there's a Star Wars movie that I hate. I kept asking myself that over and over again. And I knew it just, I knew I wasn't going nuts because when I walked out of the theater and we was getting ready to get in the car, and you know how you're standing next to your car and you look across the roof of the car at the other person as they're getting ready to go in to get into the car also. And my wife looked across the hood the roof of the car and she looked at me and she said, "What'd you think about that?" And I just looked at her and I didn't say anything and I sat down in the car. And it took me, I sat there and looked at my steering wheel with my key in my hand for like what felt like about 14 minutes, but it was really like 38 seconds of just silence. And I was like, and I looked up at Debbie and I said, I don't know what I just saw. And that's all I said. I said, I don't know what I just saw. And I started the car and we drove home for 20 minutes in complete and utter silence. Not a word, just me smoking chain smoking Marlboros all the way home from the theater. Reimaging Star Wars says Sopranos, Rome, Band of Brothers. Yes, all examples of good series. Band of Brothers is an excellent example of an awesome event series. Is the Skywalker movie over forever after December? What if 9 is as bad as we think and SW Skywalker saga is ruined? What we want another movie? Question mark. Would we want another movie? Flip, it's not going to be as bad as The Last Jedi. I mean, we just know that. We need to take into consideration how little experience Ryan Johnson's got compared to J.J. Abrams. Now, I realize a lot of that's got to do with how you feel, what you feel about The Force Awakens. You know, I like The Force Awakens. I do. It felt like a Star Wars movie, and I had a hell of a time the first time I saw it. I had a blast. Um, I could not have had more opposite feelings between The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. Um, I think J.J. Abrams is pissed, and I think he is about to go out and okay. Take care, Coon. Thanks for joining. I think JJ is going to put his entire ass in the. Okay, well, you just said it. I was going to say, Lord Callis just said it. I think JJ Abrams is about to show his ass. I think he is about to do. He's about to slather on some epic Spielberg bullshit and just lather it all over Star Wars. The only problem with that is, and I've said this before, I think no matter what, JJ has to make two movies. I feel like they have to make. I hate The Force Awakens. When I left the theater, I was like, and see, John, our theater gave it a standing ovation. I shit you not. I mean, it was, and people were cheering. Everybody was talking, blah, 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 carrying on, having a great time, walking out of the theater. It was utter silence walking out of The Last Jedi. Nobody clapped, nothing. It was dead silent. It could not have been two more polar opposite reactions. Uh Laugh out loud, I don't want to see that though. JJ's 455. I don't know, I don't want to watch a series of them dragging him down. Yeah, I guess you're talking about Luke. I don't think surely they will never treat his character like that again. I know JJ's not going to. Um, Luke's I think got 3 or 4 different just flashback sequences in this movie, and then he has a bunch of Force Ghost stuff. Of course, if it was up to me, he would just like retcon the Last Jedi altogether. And I think if it was up to him, that's what he'd do too. But I think the only directive that he got, probably from Iger, was you cannot bring Luke back to life. Which, unfortunately, I think is the one thing everybody wants him to do. Is the one thing I think he was told he could not do. But that's my opinion. I don't know. Well, guys, it is 9 o'clock. I don't know how long I have been going, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour and 15 minutes. And I have got to work early in the morning. I appreciate everybody watching. If by chance you have not hit the like button, please do so. And make sure you have subscribed to everybody that is in the chat. Lord Callis said it is 10 o'clock here. Yeah, I've got to work early tomorrow, and Friday is the hardest day of every week that I've got. So, as always, peace. I'm out. Until next time.